Hello, I'm back. Story of my life. Uh, just gonna talk a little bit about my family, a little bit about my common beliefs, um, things that Michael's likes, uh, maybe some political views, um, maybe a little bit of my opinions of jobs and the economies. um, my personal beliefs and dealings and mental thoughts and points of views that have probably no value besides somebody else that might be interested in wanting to know who I am, or um, maybe dealing with the same things in their life. Um, Obviously, you can tell I ain't got nothing else to do. I mean, uh, let's see. Start, I guess, self-identify myself a little bit. I'm Michael, 28, from Waxahachie. Um, no tattoos. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I have drank in the past. I have smoked in the past. Um, I do have 2 misdemeanors for possession in my smoking days. Um, Bad influences, bad situations, and pretty much uneducated and um, not not that I wasn't occupied, but uh, I'm on YouTube right now, so um, I don't karaoke, don't go to the bars. I used to fish, used to like to fish. Um, I found our local watering hole being a little too small these days. I had a kayak, but apartment life, you get out there and paddle, and then there's only like 5 or 6 good spots. That's kind of like, you know, privatized. That's a reasoning of going out, unless you just feel like going to fish with somebody you don't know. Um, or felt like going for a drive, go to the river, I guess. Um, but I stay local. I'm always local. The only time I leave town is if I go to my sister's, and it's like an hour and a half away. I'm driving my 98 blue Suburban, uh, busted up dash. It's, still doing its thing. It's rocking. It's making it. I'm not taking that long distance no more, so it's 6:16 p.m. I wasn't gonna make one today, but it's interesting, having something to do. Dress up the table, dress up yourself, talk about yourself. Everybody loves to talk about themselves, and so. Um, yeah, I thought I'd do this, so a little bit more in depth. Some people call it venting. I've had somebody in the past, and it's almost like rhetorically, um, I would get the impression that they would be kind of mad at me for displaying it in such a where did you get this idea to come up and do this? They'd probably be mad because, no one wants to be at blame for a disaster. Which I don't think this is a disaster. I think it's good, beneficial. Um, I suppose it could be. It is a bad thing because you don't want to let everybody in your mind to know how you think. But data collection, that's how it's used against you. Sell a product or subject you to such visual thoughts or viewpoints. Yeah, it's just I quit my job at the Vistamark. Got me a part-time job. Got another hopeful part-time job coming up in the future. I'm still dedicated on the that one job that I got that application into. That they ain't called back for that one yet. Within the same business, but I call it a business. Some people call it the company, but not with the current employers I have part-time now. But I still live at home with my mother, so that's kind of like a downside, you know. A lot of people go through that experience. I should be going through college, but really college, unless you're going to the science industry, you know, it's kind of like, you know, providing comfort for somebody else. I'd say I'm a hard worker in a good constant environment with even workloads, balanced people, just the job itself most of the time. I'm diversified about my education. Not so much education, but common interactions and culture. Stop that, go. Good boy. It's not yours. And so, I'm diversified. Got culture to me. Got some culture. Some people might call it culture. I like a steady machine line. Not so much a assembly line, but a machine line to where, you know, the machine's making a product and you have to move as fast as the machine. I like a machine. Some people's against the kiosk. Michael's not one of those people against the kiosk. I think automation will save us. I think all the wrenches in the machine will drag it out for some point, but I think automation will save us. Because once you think about it, you know, once you're just sitting at home all day and you do everything for yourself, your own laundry, your own dishes, you know, your own shopping, you mop your own floors, clean your own toilets. What else do you got to do? I mean, you just kind of, you know. So automation is really going to be a huge hit, I think. The one thing that I've found difficulties with automation is how could you do home deliveries or some kind of distribution in a vending machine style of a Walmart, or, you know, say Walmart for example, they're like the icon of it, Target. If they turned all into vending machines, how would you do chemicals? Everybody would have to do soaps and just a base product, and some people say that's going too far, Michael. And I'm like, well, the negative side of me is more of like, I know too much, like thinking of. I have high expectations, high values of stuff. I understand a lot of things. I don't want to make it into an economic video just yet. Like I said, I'm not an overtime worker, not a night worker, not a night owl, not a lunatic. Um, I came out whenever I was 23. I've waited a year and a half to try to meet somebody because of, inspirations of hoping that maybe, somebody that she was priorly, knowledge to was like in the same situation as you. But, 5% is a very small number. I looked it up in the state of Texas, only 5% of people are gay. And so within that 5%, you have to look for your preferences of race, gender, discriminatory things, your personal culture of choice of personality and appearance. And then if you take that 5%, and if that 5% stays true, in a town of 30,000, what is that, like 1,500 people? 1,500 people, or something around there. 2,000 people or something around there. 3,000 people of 30,000. So 5% is a very small number once you break it down to the subcategories. But I waited a year and a half. I started looking. Some of y'all might have seen the sign on my car and say, wow, that guy's, he's really looking for a spouse, like really desperate about it. He's done put it on the side of his car, like that's scary, like, oh my God. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so cheap and having a low memory card. Sit there and just talk to myself for like 2 or 3 minutes before you even like get that 90 degrees to look, check if the thing's still recording. But yeah, just people's like come up to me and be like, I've seen your sign, but I've never read it, and so it was like really you gotta be ashamed of yourself. But I don't know. I tried the dating sites. I want my money back, right? Not like that towards a person, because most of those are just, business people selling a product, people that want you to keep on making a monthly subscription, keeping the thought process of a different business available, you know what I mean? But those apps ain't free sometimes, and that 5% stays true, I believe. And so someone's got to keep you around. I know that's how you sell a product, though. So I completely lost my train of thought, like what I was gonna talk about. But yeah, I've done the signs, advertisements. People probably think it's pretty extreme, but when this is gonna sound funny. I asked my mom. I said, "Where do all the gay people go?" In Waxahachie. I said, "Taco Bell." She said, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, okay." So your mama loves you when she's being truthful like that. Just like, yeah. And so yeah, Waxahachie's a small town. I don't go nowhere. I never go to Dallas. I don't do the club things. I don't, however they do it. It's really economically eye-opening about being single. Just feel like, every opportunity. I don't want to harass people. I feel like being in my predicament, it's like always window shopping, always hoping for something that In your mind, you just have to come to the acceptance of it. Just, 5% is a small number. So for those people that's a naysayer about my sign on the car and saying I ought to be ashamed of myself and not a friendly, joking point of view, denial is the first step, to rehabilitation, is admitting you have a problem. So 5% is a small number. I don't go to the movies. I prefer the drive-in out there in Palmer, Garrett, Ennis. I think it's more of a comfort feeling. Yeah, it's just single life, right? I like movies, like The Matrix, like Jurassic Park, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek. I like some music, Rihanna's very rhetoric. She's nice to listen to every once in a while. Got a beautiful voice, very rhetoric about it. She is very economically outspoken. Like Star Trek. Zia's the same way. She's kind of outspoken sometimes about political views. Harry Potter was an interesting one. Yeah, it's just speak easy about that, I guess, So my dad's dead. He died in 2017, 2018. He died in 2017, 2018. Hit and run. He was riding a bicycle, got ran over, pushed out a car. I really don't know. He was homeless in Oklahoma, going, here and there. He had drug problems. He had authority problems of laborings and stuff like that. Personal beliefs. My mother stays at home. She's disabled. My brother lives out of state. I never thought the idea of a roommate was a good thing, so I'm like, well, stick out with mom, I guess. She says that she doesn't want to leave Waxahachie either, so why not, I don't speak to my family very much. It's I don't know. Ever since moving to New Hampshire, probably the reasonings behind moving to New Hampshire, it was the real impactfulness to my life. But it just kind of separated me from my family a little bit. But just been here in Waxahachie. I do like biking sometimes. I'll go bicycling around Waxahachie. There's not much to see once you've seen it all, but it's something to do, And what's so interesting is Waxahachie's such a small town with a huge population of people, and you don't see very many people walking down that sidewalk. So I think a lot of people don't appreciate the little town that we live in, not as much as they should. Sometimes I think the people really don't pay attention because, one of my economic personal beliefs is, why does Michael have to be the one to say, probably not this Michael, but why does Michael have to be the one to say that they're turning the cotton fields to master plans, and the only one that can afford a master plan house is getting their money from some form of, well, not product output, and say that, probably not. nothing that has an actual productiveness of a product output. So where the money comes from is, I don't know. You know, when Nancy Pelosi said, "Where do you think that money comes from?" It's like, oh well, I don't know. Sometimes in some form. And then they've knocked down a $2 million hospital that was a gift because Baylor didn't want to knock it down because it cost $2 million to knock down, and so they gave it away to the city, and so now the city's responsible. And the best thing that the city could come up with is, let's knock it down. I thought maybe they could turn the bottom of it into a arboretum, an indoor arboretum with a little courtyard. You know, put the dog pound down there. You could have made the upstairs into a singles housing authority for single people. I was also thinking that after seeing what's going on in local politics, they could have used it as a new city hall. They could have, you know, they don't have to be face to face whenever somebody talks to somebody. You know, you can pick up the phone from one building, dial, you know, star 98, get the outside line, dial your number, dial the extension. It's 2021. I mean, most people just got cell phones like that, but FaceTime, you know, that's real. So I thought it was really irresponsible of, you know, people knocking $2 million buildings down, building a $2 million building. The only thing that's going to go back in its place is probably a $500,000 townhome building because it's prime real estate. The city probably wound up selling it off to the developer. Sell it for some townhomes like downtown, which are nice. Better than the ones on Harley Street. At least they put equity into it. They put rooftop access. So in 100 years, when somebody else has to live there, you know, at least they got something to look forward to. It's got a rooftop access. For not that much of a, you know, expense. It's a flat roof with a slant. Maybe next time we'll go for the full meal. And so, you know, Carol Bush said, just write that check. They got money. That's a different story for a different day. Yeah, probably don't want to talk about politics. We are one nation. I believe that in politics. Politics is all one. I don't really vote no more. I don't believe in it having that huge of an impact. Maybe local politics, but even locally, it's all one party. So, Waxahachie is a good community. You get a lot of friendly faces looking at you all the time. Videos about to cut out. It's amazing how many times you can say like and drag it all out. Just thinking. That last video took 3 hours to upload, so maybe I need to just cut back on the video. But let's see, I talked about my life, talked about my family, talked about my car. Talked about my dog yesterday. I'll get back with you. I guess I'll just make this a run-on video and make it probably one of my last open thoughts for the longest time until something eventful happens. It might change my viewpoints. One of the, I just love our little town. One of the funniest things that I remember from childhood in our town was that there used to be another railroad beside the Waxahachie Depot, and through childhood I never realized that there was never another train that went over those tracks. It only went over the one that's by City Hall. So one time I remember as a child, we parked like on the tracks, and I'm like, but what if a train comes? I'm sitting here thinking today, like, there ain't never a train coming down those tracks. So I thought that was like one of those things that came and gone, and a little inside joke in my life. I'm not for sure, so I could say it if they ever watched the video. I remember one time going to Chicken Express when I was a child. I don't know if it was a dream or if it was just an actual lived memory. It was one of my earliest memories. Chicken Express had a cornfield right behind the business, and so I'm like, corn nuggets, that's pretty interesting. And so, a little interesting thing. Talked about the hospital. I think a good thing for people is I don't have any tattoos. Let's go back to me a little bit. I don't have any tattoos, and I think a good thing, I live next to a funeral home, and so I think it's pretty interesting that you could get a tattoo of just two numbers, of the year, 2 numbers of the year, either in a grid on your body or just all the way down your body, and get a tattoo every year that has the date, and then you evaluate the year to see if it was a good year for you. Write down your pros and cons, goods and bads, jobs, spouses, livings, cost of livings, and you could be like, at the end of your life, you can add it up yourself, or you have somebody add it up for you, and be like, perspective of a life. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then so I'm always really down about the cost of living, because stuff's always so expensive. You always got to work so hard for what you have. Nothing's free. Seems like it's getting harder and harder every day with automation displacing people, and there's not really a proper system of trade-off. One of Michael's economic thoughts was we could just push back the workload of somehow manipulating the markets. Some people might call it redistribution of wealth, and instead of 40 hours a week, we go to 20 hours a week. And then some people might argue, well, how could the business survive? Because then, you just can't go up to that standard. But then start thinking it might level off, because those people that only want part-time will get part-time, and those people that want full-time will be full-time. And then it diversifies, because now they also go look for another job, or they just go through a temp service at the same job. And so you're held to the same, standards of work, and you do the 40 hours, you do the Mitt Romney, you do the 40 hours if you want to, or you do 30 hours. And if the markets was kind of adjusted, and then everything was overtime, maybe stipulate the overtime somehow, it would cause a more stimulated market to employers that do have money to be like, give them overtime, But I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm a little late to it, but I watched a video last week and it was about ACs and heatings for the county jail. And I'm like, sure, they got money, you know, write the check. The check will clear. The check will clear. So ironic to my life, but anyways, the check will clear. The person that said that was arguing about the expense of the AC units and the heatings and jails and the standards of why we have to have them. They got a substantial amount of raise, and I'm a little late to the party. All these people around town have probably already heard about it. The people that actually stay tuned with the with the local politics and how they spend your motherfucking money, you know, as they said in that YouTube video. That one girl said, I need a full refund, because that's not how you talk to people when you spend their motherfucking money. So it really stuck with me of economics 100% and the money's rotation. And so I'll get back to that later. I'm pretty sure I will. It's one of my rhetorics from videos and movies and local medias that's people's learning from and really changes the culture of people. Anyways, back to the whole AC cost. She got a 74% pay increase, and that lady down at the county courthouse that was picketing it, she got a 3% raise, and she claimed that everyone in the county only had a 3% raise, and she got a 74% raise. And I thought, well, it was supposed to be a 5% raise, but, you know, something happened. And that the older lady that was outside the courthouse that was picketing, she really said something to me that was like, I made a connection with. She's like, she took the job knowing what she was going to make. She took the job knowing the demand of the job. She took the job as it was offered and as it was given. Be grateful for what you're given for. And then she comes along, and it really depicts the ideology of people, especially when they say people won't work for themselves, and they sure won't work for themselves. So, you know, comforts and stuff like that. So she said she got a 3% raise. How is that fair? She got a 74% raise. One person got a 74% raise after accepting the job, accepting what it was, knowing the workload, had the free choice to walk away from the job. Nothing keeps you in that position. Somebody else can fill that position. And I think it's very ironic that what we fear of socialism and communism played out because somebody got a 74% raise. So you're saying that you can get into a job and you can raise the standards, and it's really, you know, unionized and laboring. So it's like, you can ball your fists and shake them at me all you want. I mean, it's not going to change my political view. So, it's really eye-opening to see how people think and how politics works. And one of those jobs, you know, not that job, but one of those jobs that I'm, you know, trying to get on, fingers crossed, you know. They'll be calling me, you know, and I'll be, you know, you know what I mean? Be down at the old Baylor hospital wondering what they're gonna build. Uh, Perspectives on Tuesday. Uh, but it really spoke to me, because when the property tax went up by 9% and Michael got a 10-cent raise at the Taco Bell, Michael felt like he was really unappreciated. Michael's a hard worker. He accepted the job. He accepted for what it was. He accepted what he was given in the society we're given. And this is what makes me think of the homeless people, that's like, I just don't want to work. I just don't want to do this. I don't want this life. And it comes into a point that homelessness is almost illegal. And it's I understand their viewpoint. If they just stand on a corner and everyone in town gave them $1, they would have a whole year's income. So sometimes it's better to give that money to the person that's actually asking for it versus the person that's saying they can redistribute it, the thing that we fear. And so people are crazy these days. It's like, fuck the homeless. If it's about them, they would have never been homeless. Fuck them. It's about me. It's about my life. And so that's a real eye-opening perspective of way that you can tell it to people. That's exactly what it is. That's, fuck them. It's not about them. It's about me. If it was about them, they would have never been homeless. And it's like, how does that come off saying to the people, like, that's just, it's like, you know, it's your future, right? It's your future. But the people on the corner, they say, I didn't choose for this economics. I didn't choose for this standard of life. I didn't choose for this standard of life. I didn't choose for this demand of identification and driver's license, and roped into the idea of prosperity through jobs and laborings and educations, and there's no woods to run to, there's no mountains to run to. I guess squatting is still legal. I mean, you can squat in a lot of states and counties and cities, but it's a system that once you give the people what they want, they might settle for something less. And how could you ever get them to paint that white picket fence for you? So what's going to happen, you know, China still, I guess, what's going to happen whenever we're all hospitality and we don't have no production of materials and we outsource our materials through other countries? What is that really saying? And then we have high standards, which I understand. Tent, mint. You chose the mint on the pillow at the hotel because the best thing you could have come up with was a tent. And so everyone knows, you know, the difference in a hotel and a tent. But yeah, so, and then one thing that I would think would help is getting rid of the drive-thrus. Drop gas. You know what bugged me though? I left a can of chili on the corner because people's asking, you know, and I was homeless and I want to get back to the people what was given to me during my point of homelessness that I didn't get from my mother. Which I only went 1 month without a job, 2 months without a job, or, you know, without my family. I had food stamps, So I wanted to give back to the people of what was given to me in some form. And for homeless people, it takes one to know one, so I leave the can of chili around. And yesterday, I done seen somebody crazy with the here we go, crazy with the perspective of people following them and following objects. So I left a can of chili, so they poured their drink on the can of chili to be associated, and also in a rhetoric meaning of that chili is sticky, if you know what that means. You pick up that can, it associates you more ways than one, and then it's also sticky about, you know, somebody watching that. And so I said my act was an act of common sense. Somebody else's act was an act of subliminal rhetoric and terroristic form. It had no outcome besides a thought, and at the same time it took away from somebody else benefiting themselves for a crazy thought that we're told doesn't even exist. We're all social communists. We're all capitalists because we deal with money. We're all socialists because that money will only get you so far. There's only 100% in the market. There is no 110%. So no matter how you think you can flip that dollar, it's only going to be within the 100%. And then we're all communists because most people don't own their own business. Most people work for somebody else. And so you're going to do it in the time that they tell you to do it, when they tell you to do it, when they tell you to do it, how they tell you to do it. So even if you go to school, if you work for another company, you do the path of education, you might not be on your own business unless you own your own business. You're still going to be, you know, supportive of a communist system that you're going to be like, when do I have to come in? How do I have to do my job? How do you want it done? Even capitalists are kind of communists too, because they still have to subject themselves to the customer, supply and demand, unless you just, you know, own all the cheap living places and say, well, somebody can afford it. Somebody will buy it. I think there's ways of fixing it. It's kind of a common sense things. I mean, take this apartment for example. You sell this for $20,000, $30,000. What's the cost of living after 10 years? You don't have to work no more. You don't have to work no more. What does that mean? You only have to work 1-2 days a week. What does that mean? I don't like overtime because I feel like it needs to be cut back to where the workload needs to be leveled between the people. I think educated people will choose to go back to laboring if it was cut back on the amount of labor, and so it would work in some form or way. Because I mean, right now a lot of people's just unlean. It's not lean at all. People's jobs exist because they say they need to fill in a gap and they need to support an idea of education, and to say you will be successful if you go to school and get a degree, you will be successful. So they have to provide this thought process even if it's an unnecessary job. So I think a lot of educated people would go back to laboring if they only had to do it 2 days a week, 20 hours a week, 2 10-hour days. I mean, Yeah, I don't. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't believe in overtime because overtime is like robbing the homeless. Uh, I could use the money. Of course, anybody that works overtime says they only do it for the money, unless it's mandatory, which is communist. But um, everybody does it for the money, and so once you work that overtime, you're taking away from somebody else's perspectives of life or income. You're taking some of that 100%. So when you take that overtime, you're really robbing the homeless because the company should go get somebody else that only wants to work 1 day, 2 days, two 10-hour days. You work 2 10-hour days and overtime price of $20 an hour. That's like almost working a whole full week. I feel like a fool whenever I think of it like that. Um, so I feel like it's robbing the homeless. Um, but once you don't pay for what you own, it causes inflation. You're not paying rent for this apartment. Say you bought it, you know, what's the cost of living after that 10, 15 years of you pay this $20,000, $30,000 apartment off? If you even have to wait that long to pay it off, what's the cost of living? When you ain't paying the landlord, and the landlord ain't paying, the leisures, all the comforts, then, or expanding their business, then it causes inflation. And so you got to pay for what you own, even after you own it. So I think that's why a lot of things are like payment plan until you die. But it's all about the how do we get there. That's what it's about. How do we get there? If you watch The Matrix, you might figure it out. It's really subliminal, real interesting. Shaquille O'Neal. She fed him so much information it led to his death. Well, his supposed death. Anyways. So economics. My thought of the future is automation will save us. Our economics really going to have a crisis when space manufacturing happens, which China's already, going that way. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Virgin Galactics. Space manufacturing will ruin our markets. An oversupplied market with a low demand. What's going to happen. But we don't need rocket scientists to get to space. We need a giant tube. We can pressurize it. We can float. We can open the air hatch once it makes the top of the tube and it locks in. We can ride an eddy current out of space. That cable with a little bit spring-loaded cannon. We need the wall in space. I think some things are classified, and so when Donald Trump or even a Democrat, says the wall, when they mention the wall, maybe I think it's a wall in space for climate control, because climate is a hot topic. And so we need a shade wall in space. We need a Corvex. The Corvex lens. We can heat up the Earth. We call it climate control. And we need to keep the evil aliens out by calling it climate control. So, I think 3D printing and everything being designed through machines, through AutoCAD, for the idea of it to be printed out through 3D printing, basic understanding of computer programs, of you being able to load your own program, and then once you're just sitting at the house all day, why would you need a maid? Why would you need a cook? Why would you need, a window washer? Why would you have to call an electrician to come and change your light bulb? You need help with something, I'm sure your neighbor community is always there. So I think 3D printing and at-home manufacturing will actually replace industrial manufacturing, and raw resources will become the main materials. And once you get so lean through space manufacturing, space isn't made for humans. Humans aren't made for space. Humans are made for Earth. So robots are made for space. Our industries, when people's trying to be a forklift on Earth, and they shouldn't be a forklift, they should be replaced with a forklift. Maybe, space is the next manufacturing location. And so collect the helium off the sun. Thought hydrogen came off the sun. It's really helium. Helium comes off the sun. We'll have floating skyscrapers. You make diamond windows, insulated diamond windows. You paint the outside in the summer. You have a glass window in the winter. You have to vent the heat. So the dramatic cost of AC and heating has gone down. There's no consumption of power. Solar panels can handle your lighting. You vacuum insulate your refrigerator. If you vacuum it every time you get something out of it, there's not a need of a compressor. A incinerator toilet could replace plumbing. You don't have plumbing no more. Plastic roofs. You get plastic roofs, you just pop it on, pop it off, melt it down, add some more plastic, add a hardener, mold it, USB plug it, and then plug it back in, and you got a roof. You got 3D concrete printers now, so that's going to be really up and coming. We got the Starlink around Earth. We got enough satellites that we can make a chain to connect to robots. Robots can automate themselves, and then when they can't be automated themselves, we got the Starlink to upload code. Cement all up in space, that ain't nothing but a cinder block. The moon ain't nothing but a cinder block. When it struck Earth, it's been ignited and went through a furnace, and now it's just a giant cinder block just waiting to get crushed up and mix some of that water and make some concrete. And once you give the people what they want and it's quality and it lasts, how could you ever get them to work again? And so machines being designed on the idea that a machine can make it, a machine can fix it, the machine can identify when it's damaged, and everything is made on a square block, right? Everything is made in a square. You just plug and play, plug and play. The reason why we will never switch to such a system of that is because how could you compensate if you gave everybody what they wanted? How could you compensate science and doctors to do research? How do you get them to do a job when there's no money motivation? Everyone just becomes a scientist, which makes sense. You could reform the education system for science. And then they should have reformed, before the infrastructure bill, they should have reformed cars. Instead of electric cars, we should have had electric walking cars with vacuum insulated, cabs with shades. so that way you don't need ACs and heat as often. Make them electric. They walk. Do you need that bridge? No, I don't need that bridge. I got the extended leg package. I'm crossing the river over here. I don't need that road. I'll get back on those stepping stones here in a minute. But by doing that, you interrupt the tire business, you interrupt the oil and lube business, the brakes, you alter the markets, and government doesn't mess with businesses. They're not supposed to ruin jobs. And government can never get involved to where they're going to displace a job for a new job and make investments for people's monies for them. Here's something interesting. We had a spy from China, which had a war in the Mideast. We had the lady man, Bill Clinton. You know, when they ain't working, they're just fucking around. And then, because of surplus. And then we had another spy from China, which is back in the Mideast. And then we had the black guy, Obama. Maybe it goes Muslim though, because he's tied into the spy from China. And then we had the celebrity. We had Trump. He's really a Dutch. You know, the rhetoric of some media. And now we got a hoe from idiocracy more ways than one in the White House. And so I think politics has really come a long way. I think it really shows people's involvements. And it makes me wonder, like, when they talk about a wall and stuff like that, if that's the actual wall they're talking about, or if they're talking about classified material and they're trying to use rhetoric, as Bush said, the rhetoric, trying to use rhetoric to get people involved and get them to understand it's your money, it's your government, we the people, be involved. You let somebody tell you how it's going to be. I mean, you might be standing on the corner holding a sign saying, "Give me $1, 30,000. I'll get me a cabin in the woods. You won't have to deal with me no more." I think sonar is an interesting thing. I think technology like sonar, that's going to be a cool entertainment thing. Put some, well, not sonar, but like lasers. Put some lasers, like holograms, and you have a Gatorade water droplet, shoots off a 2D image, and you could like smoke it out, and with a fog machine, and then create phantom images. So you'd be like create an image anytime you want to. It'd be kind of interesting, a 3D image. Lots of thoughts about that. I believe there's 5 ways to self-preservation of your mind. I think mindsets have a lot to do with it. You could be filthy rich, which you could, if people was observing you, you could hide with the wealth of your money. You could buy products that they assume you're going to use, but you could just throw away or just keep in the cabinet, never use. You could be dirt poor, but they'll be waiting for you on aisle 11. They know you need that can of chili. You could trust in a group. They might call you a cult. They might call you a political party that's you know, not your viewpoints. They could be using you. You could be the jefe of every situation with a PH or with a Oh, what is it? Oh well, I'll get back to that. It's a Reba joke. A Hefe with a PH or not, I don't know yet. But control everything, which is impossible. You can't control the traffic lights. Brain farts. Or you could just go ahead and, kill your viewpoint because leave the money for somebody else. Make it look like murder. Do it for a political view. The world's not going to change for you. So I believe there's 5 ways of self-preservation of the mind. And they all tie into politics, rhetoric, economics, psychology, of the materials that you buy and the reasons people do what they do. American nuclear accident. They left the guy on the ceiling because of the love triangle. Poverty's real. One of my most craziest thoughts that I've ever had was it's biblical, which is a joke. It's an old joke. I've heard it on a show before. The 666 is a hot ground because the AC of the alternating current to the ground is how the devil talks to you. Because that's how you broadcast out. So you have to have a hot ground. And then it's kind of rhetoric like some Spanglish, old rhetoric Spanglish. The hoe thought around, the G looked like an A. The hoe thought around when you spell it out. And then roho, you mad that you gotta work too? Are you red? Are you mad that you gotta work too? So, from the ye old days of slaveries and whatnots, that's one of the most craziest things. My idea of why they had a boat outside the pyramid is, my idea, right, is not that he wanted to be buried with his bride as Katy Perry portrays in Pegasus Shadow Games, but it's for Peter falling into the ocean. It's symbolic to how Jesus was trying to teach somebody, Peter falling into the ocean. And so whenever you're thinking on it, or your mind's subjected to such a time frame that you fall into an ocean in a boat, but you're really hallucinating from the hot ground, you'll wind up on land. You're not going to wind up in the water. You'll, like a cat, laying on its feet. And so, I think Spanglish, the lesson we can learn from Peter falling out the boat is Dios míos, my God, and then you say the expression Dios míos. So you say goodbye, my God. Why did Peter fall in the ocean? Because he lost faith. So that's really inspirational to think about. Another thing was the crucifixion of Jesus. That's another interesting thing. A time that stays tested like the Mad Hatter, Pilate, they'll fire your ass. Pilate said in a sarcastic way, he said, "But what did he do?" And the Jews answered back, "You know damn well what he did, Pilate. Crucify him." And so they said they'll call Caesar and he'll fire your ass. And so Pilate said he was the king of the Jews, of you, so Caesar will go after you. He won't go after me. And so it's a time tested word of Pilate that we still use today. And my whole thought backing it is the whole pyramid idea of but what did he do? You know damn well what he did. He ruined our goddamn business, because Jesus said they turned the house of God to the house of commerce. He ruined our goddamn business. Crucify him, or we'll fire your ass. And so I think politics play out, religions plays out. Maybe they planted silver on Judas and killed him to say he sold out Jesus and then killed himself. And what is it? Brain farts. But I try to understand the Bible. I read it sometimes. I used to. I don't read it no more. Subjective thoughts, you know. You don't want to go too crazy. So sometimes it's just best not to look out the window. You know, it's like the beginning. God didn't like it when we knew too much. But they killed Jesus out of an Egyptian belief when they killed him. They spared the expense on a nail, because imagine how much a nail cost back in those days. It was wicked expensive. So back when Pharaoh was talking, if you think of Babylon, of one language, there is no one language, you know, now. So Pharaoh had his talking stick. He said, you see this stick with the tassels representing the snake's tongue? He said, I am the snake. I am the head of the body. He said, you come here, you pay money when you see the pyramid. And then he said, if you got no money, you like these people with a shepherd's stick. You are the flock. You are slaves. You go stand in the slave line, you not pay my pyramid money. And so when the people was with Pharaoh, you know, he crossed his arms. And then when it was something for Pharaoh, he would hold out his stick. And when it's something for the people, because you got to keep the people happy, he would, you know, say it's for the people. I'm giving you all a free buffet tonight. Free buffet. Free buffet. Good job. Good job. Good job. Pat on the back. Pat on the back. Good job. Good job. And so, you know, you got to take care of the people back in those days. So when they crucified Jesus, they was making a rhetoricness of a joke of them. They was making a joke of them. They spared the expense because they had money. Where does money come from? How do you get money? Who's paying for that nail? And so they used the expense to keep him open, his arms open, to say he's not one with the people, as not to make him a martyr. And my viewpoint of how Jesus died. So I said, go ahead and spare the expense on another nail, because Michael doesn't change his viewpoints on very much these days. Anyways, I ain't got nothing else to do. I got a lot of time to think. It sounds crazy. I can make one hell of a movie, I guess. I'm working on a movie. It's called Job 2828. Hoping to get it out by 28. Job 2828. Job 2828. which was an interesting thing of when I started my movie and what I was going to title my movie, and when I quit a job and sticking the key in the side and coming to a passage, and behold, some David Blaine stuff really going on. But anyways, that's my 4-hour upload video. All my crazy thoughts, viewpoints, politics. Just kind of, you want to know how Michael thinks about politics and economics, and why he wants to go home on time, and why he doesn't want to work too hard. That's not going to get him nowhere else that he's already established at, or lack of options. Say, being a bad businessman isn't, or isn't, I don't know. Go to school. Go to school. Say, Michael, you got more than what a lot of people in the world have, and it's like, yeah. Michael worked hard for it, and he's starting to understand that stuff. And I do believe sidewalk homelessness. I do believe sidewalk homelessness probably won't be too bad after too long, but $1,300 a month or $1,300 a year on food is expensive. That's a whole month's income. At that $7.25 an hour. And then sidewalk homelessness is almost pretty much illegal already. But I thought about doing the sun tour thing, saving up money, getting a bicycle with solar panel, electric wheel, riding off into the sunset, and found that spouse to be crazy enough with me. Want to be like one of those YouTubers that's like taking 6 months off just to go sun tour, and how they do it and still own a house and 2 cars in the driveway and house full of furniture is beyond me. Anyways, this will probably be my last video for a while. See y'all later. Thought this was an eventful experience. That was all my little ideas of what I should talk about, the highlights of my life, the viewpoints that get you thinking, to be like, well, how would Michael think of the situation, or how would he probably come to his logical conclusion. Michael's easy to please. AC, heat, cold cup of tea, Dr. Pepper, Star Trek on the television, and a recliner. Highlight of my life. Michael is a picky bitch. I'll say that. Spousal scene, if you ever... Michael is crazy, so I am very picky about who I am, like, interested in. And I'm very, old, kind of, at home body. So, for those spouse seekers out there that's probably watching this for, spousal reasons or something, Michael's not too crazy, but Michael is picky. It's just who I am. So, don't take it offensively, because it might have been something that you could have never changed, such as not you yourself, but maybe a character trait that you might have of appearance to me too, or a connection to a previous person, or somebody simply being as tall as my mother. Like, that's inappropriate for, certain reasons. So for that reason, don't feel offended. Um, Sometimes it's just, personal reasons just like that. I mean, you could be the nicest, coolest, most attractive person in the world, but if you was like to be, you know, not obnoxious, but uh, somebody that fills in a character's traits, I probably won't like you. Or even if it was just your name. So that's how picky Michael is. Even if it was just your name, and it was just meant for relevance to another character. Stanley, do not enter. Those are not fictional characters. Those are real people. If you ever see the joke, you'll understand. But so, that's who Michael is. I mean, if you ever think, well, how would Michael probably analyze this, or how would Michael think about this? That's how Michael would probably analyze it and work it out. I mean, know as much as I do. Never be scared to say, hey, I mean, Michael is a picky bitch, and he does have a hard time at rejecting people. So, I mean, that's why I made my sign, because 5% is a very small number. Character traits within subcategories is very limited. So, I don't think I have anything else to say. Michael's social. He can go out and hang out with, bars and clubs, but Michael don't drink. So if I had a reason to go, maybe I'd go. But I don't like coworkers, and I don't like people that's interconnected for a political reasoning of the characters' traits. That's the main purpose. So don't be offended. That's who Michael is. Walking around town would be the easiest way to be like, hey, nice to meet you. Still single, still driven. You ever seen my window on my Suburban back in the day whenever I had stickers and it's driven to despair? Woo-wee. Still driven. Even if you just wanted to, have a question or a chat, I feel like a lot of people probably want to ask me a question or two that's just really, I've seen that guy over and over and over, and I just really want to ask him. So don't feel offended, even if even if I'm mad, even if I look mad or I look serious, or even if I look upset, go ahead and ask me, because maybe that's the reason why I'm mad, angry, and upset, is because somebody already knew you wanted to ask me something, and so you didn't ask me because you wanted. No, today's not the day. I'll ask them 2 or 3 months whenever I run into them again. So, later. Oh, and if you are associated with somebody that's intermingled in associations, please don't try to like say hey to me, like not in a sense of I don't know how to say it. Well, that sounds horrible when I say it like that. oh, you're friends with so and so. Okay, yeah. It's like, oh, I know so and so. It's like kind of to a degree like that, but more of an informedness. I don't know how to say it. All right, I guess that's the best way I can say it. This was Michael. If I ever come up with, politics or jobs or viewpoints or dramatic change in life to explain who Michael is, political views, I might make another video. Maybe I'll make another little pamphlet to be like what Michael should tell people about himself. Don't be afraid to ask. We're all grown up, so don't be afraid to ask. 2021. Here we go to 2022. Later.